He is the most interesting man in the world, and his name is actually Bill Roedy. I'm not done, Bill. Don't stand up yet. How many people do you know who have commanded nuclear missile silos in the Cold War, were present when the Berlin Wall fell, met with Castro, partied with Mick Jagger, dined with China's leaders, consulted with Nelson Mandela, planted an MTV flag all over the Middle East, advocates for millions of people suffering with AIDS? Now, I knew I had big shoes to fill tonight. I went on his website. It's an amazing website. When I retire, just give me your website designer. And I watched a couple videos of introductions that other people have made at similar awards ceremonies. And he was introduced by the likes of Wyclef Jean, Lenny Kravitz, Bill Clinton, Kofi Annan, just to name a few. Beyonce, she's an okay speaker, she's all right. Beyonce once introduced him as a man of great contradictions, a successful CEO who wears sneakers to work. You got sneakers on tonight? He's got sneakers on tonight. A Harvard Business School grad who hangs out with hip-hop artists. A Vietnam vet who drinks tea with Beijing's elite, but reveres Dalai Lama secretly, I think. A contradiction maybe, but interesting for sure. I first met Bill in 1990. Mark Schneider and I were doing some things in Sweden, and Bill had just left. I don't remember the night because I'm sure we were too drunk to remember it, but he had just left HBO to basically start his career, or start the expansion of MTV around the world. And that sort of coincided with our decision to get into the international cable business. And while we were out doing our thing, he basically led this crusade for MTV that now reaches 162 countries in 33 languages and an audience of almost 2 billion people. That's a pretty big number if you let that sink in. MTV is one of the 10 most recognized consumer brands in the world, #1 global music destination for youth. You can also thank him for SpongeBob and iCarly and all the stuff, garbage, that's not garbage, all the stuff our kids gorge on. In fact, my daughter just started high school, and the other day I walked in and she was in like her 4th episode of the Kardashians or something horrible. And she looked at me sincerely and said, "Dad, don't worry, I still love my kids' shows on Nickelodeon." And I was kind of like, But anyway, in his spare time, this man wrote a book, a very good book, entitled What Makes Business Rock, Building the World's Largest Global Networks, the world's largest global networks. And I read the book. And it wasn't because I was quoted in the book, well, kind of, but I read the book. And it was a brilliant walk down memory lane. I mean, a fantastic history of the cable and media industry. And we have copies here, I think. There's 40 copies out there if you want to grab one. It was full of insight and humor, just dripping with great stories, like the time he was singing karaoke with Bono in Tokyo. You were dressed in a police outfit. He was in a nurse's outfit. You got to tell that one when you come up here. We're not sure how that happened. And I do have one favorite part of the book. There's a part where he could, this could be in one of those beer commercials. At one point, he's describing life lessons, and he talks about when he was in the jungle in Vietnam, and all the things that he learned there, like how to make quick decisions, how to build great morale with your team, how not to back down. I mean, it was heavy, kind of Six Sigma stuff, and you're waiting for the next piece, like how he derived this RRR, or something happened in this transaction, or an org structure, and he goes on to say, for example, there was this MTV concert in Cape Town, and I ran into this little problem backstage with P. Diddy. And he goes on to describe how he solved this problem, that the tools that he learned in Vietnam helped him solve this problem, which I think was classic. Now, this award is given to an individual who has made a significant and demonstrable impact on improving the lives of those in need. And if you look at the past recipients, Sir Bob Geldof, Bertie Ahern, Harriet Lamb, and President Paul Kagame, being interesting is not enough. In fact, really, I think there are very few people who have made a more significant and lasting impact on the global fight for AIDS awareness and prevention than Bill Roedy. Let me just give you a few examples. I'm going to read this because it's impressive. At MTV, Bill pioneered the Staying Alive campaign of award-winning documentaries and concerts and town halls and PSAs which promote global HIV/AIDS education. He serves today as the chairman of the Staying Alive Foundation, which fights the AIDS epidemic at the grassroots level by providing grants to people all over, in many countries. In 1998, he was named ambassador for the United Nations program on HIV/AIDS because of his extensive travels and advocacy battling the disease. He's addressed the United Nations General Assembly on several occasions, and he actually gave a keynote at the 2010 Model UN. He served as a founding member and chair of the Global Business Coalition on HIV/AIDS from 1999 to 2002, and increased the commitment of the business community to that organization. And in December 2010, he became the chairman of that corporate advisory board. In April 2005, UN Secretary General Kofi Annan appointed Bill as a founding chair of the Global Media AIDS Initiative. MTV was one of the first media companies invited to participate in that initiative that helps galvanize media organizations to play a stronger role in educating and folks on HIV and AIDS. The GMAI was launched in 2004 with just 22 participants, and under Bill's leadership now represents 140 companies in 70 countries. He's also joined the board of the American Foundation for AIDS Research, AMFAR, and in November 2010, he was appointed as an envoy for the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunizations, or Gavi, by Mary Robinson. I honestly can't think of a more deserving, I know I was starting with the fun stuff, but I can't think of a more deserving recipient of this Lessons for Life Achievement Award than Bill Roedy. He's a friend, he's a great leader and philanthropist, and quite possibly the most interesting man in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Roedy.
Okay, I want Mike at my funeral.
Hey, it's a clock.
It's a clock, and I need a clock because I'm always late. And if my wife believed half of that, I would be a lucky man, or a fraction. And that was longer than Fidel Castro, Mike. I think you need an editor. I was wondering where you're going with the Dos Equis. I haven't seen the commercials, but it sounds cool. Anyway, thank you, Mike. That was overwhelming, and I have been bitten by a lot of mosquitoes, believe me. And at times like this, we learn 3 words at MTV: I'm not worthy. Thank you, Lessons of Life. Thank you, Liberty Global. Thank you, all the people that Mike recognized and stood up tonight. That was quite moving for me. I do want to say a couple of things about Mike, and we have known each other for a long time, and you probably can't tell this by looking at us, but Mike's actually a little bit younger than me. But that hasn't stopped him over the years from being a mentor, and just tonight he offered some really, really great advice, because I asked him, I said, this room, I looked around the room, and by the way, the joke holds, the business cards are more important than any money from this room. I said, what an impressive group. Oh my gosh. I've never met and seen so many leaders, global leaders in my life. What should I say? And he looked at me, without hesitation, with that same serious look that you've all seen him do. He's doing it right now. And he looked at me and he said, Bill, whatever you do, don't try to be insightful, charming, or intelligent. Instead, just be yourself. So here I am, Mike. I'm following your advice, and he told me tonight he's a member of a band. He's very modest about this. He just performed at Red Rocks. 8,000 people paid to see his band. He's the front man, the lead singer. And after hearing him, after hearing him tonight, it's like, wow, I can see. So following you, Mike, is really very daunting. I was reminded, however, in my MTV days, that Jimi Hendrix once opened for the Monkees. So I kind of get it now. I'm the Monkees, don't worry, Mike. Respect to Davy Jones, by the way. Come on, passed away this February. Sir Davy departed us, and he is a great man in MTV history. So I do want to say that, yes, I have known Mike and the Liberty Global, different names, Mark Schneider before, for 20 years. Mike, you and your team, true global citizens. I've worked with a lot of companies, a lot of cable companies in the U.S. and globally, probably dozens and dozens and dozens. I've never seen a better operation. I'm very, very serious. I've never seen better leadership. And it proves to me that, you can be tough, you can be competitive, but you can also be compassionate and you can be nice. And, I've always felt welcomed by Liberty Global, and it's something that I've always really treasured. So here is to you, here is to your incredible team, here is to the trustees of this wonderful foundation, and what an honor it is to follow Shane. You know, for those of you who were here last year, different hotel, of course, and to see that visual is permanently etched in my mind. The strength, the courage he had in standing up and speaking just really, really touched me. And, you know, his spirit, I will always remember that image. And, you know, everything you said so nicely about Shane, Mike, holds for me, too. And the great thing is he's left a lasting legacy with this foundation's Lessons for Life. And, you know, that's something that we can all be proud of. So I have some notes. I don't know, for those of you who saw the convention last week, Clint Eastwood spoke to a chair. And I've decided not to do that, but I will warn you that short attention spans, by the way, invented by MTV, not Twitter, I'm here to say, and I'm very proud of that. So I'm going to go very fast. But first, let me say, you know, there's a lot of debate about the future of TV now, and, you know, we're all going to Amsterdam. A lot of us are going to Amsterdam tomorrow to participate in that discussion for the IBC. I got to tell you, I feel like the luckiest person in the world to be part of this industry, and, you know, just to be part of it was such a privilege for me. And I rode the brand, and I did a lot of things that I truly was passionate about and loved it. And I did it because I was able to ride this incredible industry and this brand. So a little while ago, Bill Clinton, sorry to name drop, said to me as I was leaving MTV, you know, the best thing about retirement is that you can finally say what you've always wanted to say. And I said, wow, that's pretty cool. And then he quickly said, the worst thing is that no one really cares what you say. So I did what any self-respecting, retiring media executive would do. I wrote a book. And just to set the record straight, you know, no one likes their predecessors, no one likes their successors. But it is called What Makes Business Rock, and it's a great sleep aid. Throw away your Ambien. It works magically on airplanes. The publisher described it as a business book disguised as a memoir, and I think that's a mistake because it's really more the reverse. It covers everything from West Point Ranger School to Lady Gaga, and how I went from literally missiles to music, DMZ to MTV, and, I don't know, the Iron Curtain to the red carpet in Berlin. And the main story is really how to build a global network and by the way, it's not 2 billion, it's 8 billion. We always exaggerated MTV. And it's not 200 channels, it's many, many more. But, you know, how to build a global network. And I got to tell you, you know, during that incredible journey, it was almost a quarter of a century, the thing that I am truly most proud of is that I was able to introduce this amazing set of thought-provoking, intelligent, and informative, and very sensitive programs to the world. And I'm starting with Jersey Shore. And, you know, for those of you who don't know, Snooki gave birth to a baby today. And she announced that she was going to stop partying. And when I said that to my beautiful wife down there, she said, duh, you're not going to be partying anymore with the baby. Beavis and Butthead, my favorite, you know, I brought it everywhere around the world, and I'm here to say I'm very proud of that. And, you know, probably more than Beavis and Butthead, however, is another one of my favorites, which is Jackass. Now, MTV, in true fashion, didn't just introduce Jackass, but we always pride ourselves in being on the technological front of everything, the cutting edge. We did Jackass 3D. So I'm here to say that's probably my proudest moment. Now, I also write about lessons learned, mistakes made. Mistakes made are really too numerous to mention, but I'll just do a few. I sat down with the Chinese 20 years ago. They said, you can do business here as long as you don't violate the 3 Ts. I said, what are the 3 Ts? They said, Tibet, Taiwan, Tiananmen Square. What did I do? Regularly put those 3 Ts on the channel. So I was constantly doing apology tours. I had to explain to the Chinese once why the father of Kung Fu Panda was a duck. On my many travels, I woke up one morning in Taiwan. The first thing I do is I turn on the TV, see the local MTV channel. In this case, it was MTV China in Taiwan before we launched mainland. 8 o'clock in the morning, the program was wrestling. I said, okay, we'll go with it. Nude wrestling, nude male wrestling. So at that point, I probably realized that my localization strategy of decentralization probably went a little too far. Another trip to China, I was very privileged to travel with our owner, Sumner Redstone, and we celebrated this amazing deal of launching MTV China in mainland China. We were celebrating in the People's Hall, this great hall of protocol, and we had all the people at the table, including President Jiang Zemin. And at one point, Sumner Redstone decided to announce to the table that I have had better Chinese food in New York. We didn't launch on time. So along the way, I've had this amazing backstage pass, heads of state, artists, every celebrity imaginable, Mandela to Pamela Anderson, two very different people. From Korea, Ban Ki-moon to the Wonder Girls, a K-pop band, Queen of England to the rock band Queen, both of whom were too old to understand MTV. I did sing with Bono and Geldof in a karaoke bar, and he was dressed as a nurse, as I was dressed as a cop. And, I also write about the lessons learned, and one of which is the military. I was often asked when I first joined MTV, so what's in common between the military and West Point? What's in common between the military, West Point, and MTV? And the first thing I would say after a lot of thought was, absolutely nothing. And after further reflection, I realized that there was a lot that I learned, and I think it was a lesson on life. You learn from your experiences no matter what. So what did I do? I actually set up the organization as a military operation. Some small fighting units, decentralized, small attacks, big defense. That was sort of my motto. First on the battlefield during a crisis, of which there are many. Last to leave. Slow to take credit, quick to take blame, which is counterintuitive, especially in the business world. And then I also talk about localization, and that was the whole thing we tried to do. Respect and reflect, not one cola, not one burger. We had called a prayer on the Muslim channels. We interpreted Ramadan in a very youthful way. We put Dora in a burqa in Arabia, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing is I talk about adaptability. Darwin says it's not about the fittest, but it's about the most adaptable, and we try to adapt all the time. The list literally goes on and on and on. But I think the number one lesson, when I reflect back, is this. Doing good is good for business. It's good for your customers. In some cases, you won't have customers unless you do good. It's good for your employees because they feel good about coming in. Morale lifts. And if you don't believe those two, it's good for your brand. In other words, it's actually good for business. So I started an organization called the Global Business Coalition, which was basically centered on that set of themes. The other thing I realized is that business has so much to offer. And I'm not telling you anything new, but sales, marketing, no one can sell like business. No one can market like business. Operations, but most of all, it's the people of business. So you put those two ideas together, and business can have and offer so much to the many challenges that hit us around the world now more than ever. And I would often say, pick one. It almost doesn't matter. Just pick any issue. So at MTV, we did a few. Global health, HIV, of course, because the primary demographic affected by HIV was below age 25, the most sexually active. And we, at Nickelodeon, we talked about nutrition. But a lot of our issues were surrounded about global health. I came to realize later, however, that education is probably the most critical. And in many ways, it's really the umbrella over everything else, because for our fight against HIV and AIDS, education was key. Peter Piot of the UN said, education saves more lives than doctors, not to denigrate doctors. But in our fight for prevention and stigma, which are the two key elements for HIV, very solvable, it's really about education. Which brings me to Lessons for Life and why education is so critical for everything. So I recently took the family, 4 kids, and my wife, who had all of her kids naturally, by the way, do not try that at home. No pain relief, I'm here to say. We all went to Egypt, and we toured all the sites, and it's quite a trip. I'm sure many of you have done this. A great civilization, pyramids, temples, the whole thing were all incredible. We went to Tahrir Square, saw a little bit of Arab Spring. But probably the biggest impact of that trip occurred on a boat near the Aswan Dam. We were on a sailboat, and we saw these children, 8 years old, 10, 12 years old, and they were on these styrofoam pieces with cardboard paddles. And they would paddle to the boats in very choppy waters, very dangerous, and then they would latch themselves onto our boat, and they would start entertaining us and singing in whatever language that boat happened to be. Other boats were German, our boat happened to be English. So they would do their act in whatever language it was. Now, they weren't in school, obviously. They didn't have any digital devices. Instead, they were just earning money. And these kids, well, okay, they were smart. They spoke many different languages. They were bold and brave, obviously. They were innovative in that their rafts were really from recycled trash. And they were entrepreneurial. They collected money. But the thought occurred to us, and we talked about this as a family, that with no education, it would be next to impossible to bring that ingenuity to the next level. And what a huge loss in human capital that was. What a tragedy. And then the question is, so why should education depend on where you're born and your birthplace? Why should your birthplace determine your opportunity for education? Where is the equal opportunity? And where is the fairness that all of us, most of us, I'm sure, in this world have had? Now, I've traveled a lot to Africa, and in the last 20 years, I've visited schools, I've seen AIDS hospitals, I've seen all the villages that I can have time to visit, townships, of course, and I love being on the roads of Africa during school time, because it is so inspirational to see the beautiful kids, and we saw 2 of them tonight. They are proudly dressed, and by the way, the uniforms that they were wearing, these 2 wonderful girls, that's what they wear to school. And no matter what the economic conditions are, they're perfectly pressed, and they have so much pride in the fact that they're going to school and getting educated. And as you drive along these roads, you see a couple walk, and then you see more walk, and you say, okay, the school must be here. And then before you know it, you're driving for 30, 40 minutes. They're still walking. They walk miles, it seems like, sometimes. And then when they get to the school, they share a desk, often. They even share a seat. Sometimes there's no electricity. But in their eyes, you see this amazing optimism. You see hope. You see confidence where before there was doubt. And this only comes through education. This only truly comes through education, that confidence and that hope. And the other thing I've seen in my travels to Africa is how young people have worked so hard to fight AIDS. It's impacted Africa more than most parts of the world, but the determination, the dedication, the unselfishness, the creativity, the level of sophistication that long ago I became convinced that Africa would be the leadership that would turn the tide against this epidemic. And I still feel that to this day. The kids from Lessons of Life, we saw 3 tonight, they will continue that leadership, but they will also become, all the kids, the 5,500 now, they will become teachers, they will become doctors, they will become nurses, they will become business, and they will become community leaders. And as Assisi said, they will become a respected young woman. and as CV said, and they will help to tackle the world's challenges, of which there are so many, and they represent human capital, which is so inspirational. They are young people, they are young, educated people. They will make a difference, and they will make the world a better place. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind. So with that, I would just like to congratulate Lessons for Life, Ruth, Charlie, the whole team, Liberty Global, Mike, and your incredible team. Most importantly, I'd like to congratulate this room because you support it and you're there as part of the fight. You're helping to truly, truly make a difference. So let's go forward. Let's make those 25,000 kids a reality. And I'm going to sign my pledge card right now. Thank you very much. Thank you.